Andrew DeCecco, who is
we've got one.
Yes. Well, we talked to Jeff McClain earlier in the week.
The Inquirer claims Jeff McClain.
Honestly, we like everybody, but Andrew DeCecco holds a special spot in our hearts, especially this week, because we got to know what's going on with the QB and what's going on with these Birds ahead of their matchup with the Green Bay Packers. So let's go to the Comcast Business Hotline. Every day in business is a big day. Comcast Business gets you ready for what's next. For our midweek to check in, Andrew, first and foremost, the Eagles waive Ian Book yesterday. Does that say to you the same thing it's saying to John and I, which is Jalen Hurts should be good to go?
Yeah, that's as big of a tell as you can hope to get at this point in the week, guys. And Ian Book, for him to have been the emergency third quarterback, he would have had to have been on the 53-man roster. So that suggests that all the quarterbacks are going to be back in place in their normal spots in Jalen Hurts, Kenny Pickett, and, of course, Tanner McKee as the emergency third quarterback.
I am a believer that now the question is, how do you develop a game plan with a quarterback who has been not only out of action for a month, but is in danger if he was to get that second concussion? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, that's a great question, John. And what I would say is, I think if you're the Eagles, you don't want to stray too far away from what's made you so successful. And I think when you do that, you become a little bit guarded, and you're not able to kind of have the whole playbook at your disposal. So for the Eagles, I would expect them to kind of turn Jalen Hurts loose as they have all season. The thing that I'm curious to see, because I'm not sure where you guys land on this, but Kellen Moore, I haven't seen the innovation or anything like that with the motion and everything that we thought we were going to get with Kellen Moore. It's been more of the conservative approach. So I'm expecting the Eagles to come out run heavy, leaning on their offensive line, getting Saquon Barkley going, and allowing Jalen Hurts to settle into the flow of the game and try to get off to a fast start.
What do you think that is with Kellen Moore? Is that I haven't needed to use it this year because Saquon Barkley's here having a 2,000-yard season, or is it a inability? Because, if we're in a spot where you need to use more in the postseason, do you think he has that up his sleeve?
Oh, I would say, honestly, looking at the game, looking back, and I've watched every game multiple times, Connor, for me, the games that were quintessential Kellen Moore games were the first game against Green Bay, and I would also say the Steelers game, at least based on the data that we have from Kellen Moore at his previous stops. But I think the Eagles saw that running the football was so effective, and the offensive line was literally wearing teams down, and in the third and fourth quarter of those games, eventually the dam broke and Saquon Barkley was able to take over. They just found that was their recipe for success, and I think that he hasn't had to pull out all the stops. But so that's why going into the postseason, I'm not exactly sure they're going to see all the bells and whistles from Kellen Moore, because the Eagles haven't had to pull that out because they've just been able to dominate every team. It hasn't been the fast starts that everyone had been hoping for, but I think just the physicality and their bully ball style has allowed the Eagles to really take over games late down the stretch.
I know you've been watching film all week because that's the way your programmers programmed you. When you're talking about the opponents that have really taken advantage, whether it's Minnesota, Detroit, the Eagles, of things that the Packers want to do offensively, what did they do defensively?
I think taking advantage of Green Bay in the passing game. And what I mean by that is this week they're going to have someone like a Keyshawn Nixon who's playing corner. And I think that he's been probably one of the most underrated players on their defense. And they also have a second-year player in Carrington Valentine who's going to be on the other side. They've been banged up all season, John. Jair Alexander's only played in 7 games this season. They have a really good safety tandem in Xavier McKinney and Javon Bullard from Georgia who can move around, but they've just been very vulnerable against the pass. And I just don't think that Green Bay's been able to adjust because they've had so many different moving pieces there. And this is a really bad time for them to be shorthanded in the secondary. So that to me has been where teams have been able to really exploit them.
We're talking to Andrew DeCecco on the Comcast Business Hotline. Andrew, when you look at the Packers' ability, or rather inability to score, John had some numbers about them not really clearing 27 points against postseason opponents. Do you think that what's the threshold for amount of points you could realistically see the Packers put up on Sunday?
24, I would say, just because Jordan Love, and that's a player who was going into the season with a lot of hype surrounding him. If you really look at it, he's kept the ball out of harm's way really since the midway point in November, but he hasn't. It's almost like the Green Bay Packers have taken the ball out of his hands. They become very run-centric with Josh Jacobs, and that to me would tell you that they're going to try and slow the game down and hope that they can get a big run in of themselves. But I just don't see them being able to compile that many points, just given they're not entering the postseason on a very high note, and their best chance of really taking over this game is to get their running game going, because Jordan Love hasn't had the passing game, the passing attack that everyone thought he was going to have. And they don't have Christian Watson, by the way, guys, who is their deep play specialist. He averaged 21.4 yards a game. I'm sure we all remember that they tested Quinyon Mitchell late in that, or early in the first game of the season, and that's kind of how they try to stretch defenses out, and they don't really have that kind of player right now. So I think they're going to try and run the football heavy with Josh Jacobs.
I'm interested to see the role of Devontae Smith in this offense on Sunday. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I think he's actually going to have probably the biggest game when the Eagles do take the passing game. Remember, in the first game, he had 84 yards on 7 catches, and he could have had a lot more. I just view him as a terrible matchup for anybody that the Packers try to line up on against him, John, because he is that 3-level threat. He's had a eerily quiet season, and I do think that this will be an awakening of sorts, because I feel like Devontae Smith's really ready to take things over, and I do believe that when in doubt, Jalen Hurts has proven that he's going to lean on Devontae Smith to be that safety valve for him. I also wouldn't be surprised if Dallas Goedert, now that he's had 13 snaps in the season finale, I feel like he's going to have a presence over the middle of the field as well.
So, Andrew, I know that Nick Sirianni can't speculate about Jalen Hurts since he's in concussion protocol, but we are not restricted from doing so. Do you think that Jalen Hurts clears concussion protocol today, tomorrow? Do you have a guess on that?
Well, I would imagine that he's going to practice today, and then if he reports back with no symptoms Thursday morning, then you're going to have your answer. But he can't talk to the media until he gets the practice under his belt, until, of course, he clears concussion protocol. But my read on it is there's no need to sound the panic alarm. Now, if we don't get any further answers today, okay, well, then there's reason for concern. But I would imagine that tomorrow morning, guys, we're going to have our answer. I think Jalen Hurts is going to be fine and ready to go for Sunday.
Well, Andrew, you're going to be fine and ready to go because you are always available. So appreciate the time. We will talk to you for the full 8 o'clock hour on Friday.
You got some work this afternoon, right?
Yes, that's right. I will be co-hosting with Tyrone Johnson for the best show ever, and I'm very much looking forward to it.
Oh, that's awesome. So tune in 2 to 6 here, Andrew DeCecco, man. Appreciate
Just wipe
the time.
everything down.
Yeah, keep that away. We got some sickness going around the building.
Buddy.
There's Andrew DeCecco on the Comcast Business Hotline. Every day in business is a big day. Comcast Business gets you ready for what's next.
Now, it was interesting because very much in line with his thing about let's have Jalen Hurts just run the ball early in this game. Brendan Gunn was saying, forget about all the sickness going around the station. He said everybody should just lick the console.
I would never
and
say
just take the risk.
Yeah,
you
right.
can't-
Like you
can't
might
do
as well
shows
see if
scared.
you're
I'm not
going to
going to
get
repeat
sick
what Connor
now.
said over
Yeah,
there,
I mean,
but
come on.
Listen, man, my immune system is strong. I don't know about you guys, but I live in germs basically every day with the way that my lifestyle
You
is.
fall-
dirty?
you
You
fall-
don't clean up
he
your
falls
you don't wash
asleep.
your dishes?
He goes and gets a Big Mac and then brings it into bed
Where
and
else am I
falls
gonna eat
and
it?
falls asleep with it on the nightstand, not eating it.
Well, those things are indestructible. They last through a nuke.
Just like
you.
me, baby.
Well, believe
you are
me.
what you eat.
What it is.
So Andrew seems to think pretty confidently that Jalen Hurts is good to go, that he should get through practice today,
Sure.
and then obviously you have to get through practice and not report symptoms, the fully clear concussion protocol. So that's the time frame for what the assumed news is. Now, again, remember, that's just an assumption, but it sounds like there's also a high level of confidence from Andrew DeCecco that the Philadelphia Eagles will be able to win this game as long as Hurts is available like we expect him to be, and they do what they've been doing all year. Like, this is what we're talking about. You may have some concerns, but at the end of the day, I don't think there's many people that believe the Eagles are not coming out of this game victorious.
And the opponents of the Eagles, I would tell you almost every single game, they will have more concerns about them than the Eagles should have.
Well, that is totally fair. And a little bit later on this hour, not doing it just next, but later on this hour, you're going to have some perspective on how the opponents of the Eagles, or rather the opponents' media, are talking. But coming up, I want to react a little bit more to what Andrew had to say there as far as the mentality heading into this game from the Eagles, and also what the game plan could be, because he said something very interesting earlier on in that interview that I want to break down with you, Johnny. So I'll tell you what that was specifically next. I'm Connor Thomas sitting in for Andrew Salciunas, John Kincade to my left. Brendan Gunn on the board. We're back after this for more Kincade and Salciunas here in 97.5 The Fanatic.
Thank you so much for checking out our content on the 97.5 The Fanatic YouTube channel. Hope you enjoyed the video. And remember, you can always be checking the playlist. There may be something you missed from one of our shows during the day that you want to go back and check out. So every time you like a video, like it, subscribe to the channel, and you'll have that great content coming to you every single day. You're greatly appreciated.